Wasn't that some expression I got? You know, it's said that competition brings the best out to the fore. And I suppose this confrontation did just that and nothing more. It was an uncaught, unholy contest held in secret like a jewel. It was the piddling competition held every evening going home from school. Now the rules were very simple, and to all contenders clear, the boy that could piddle furthest from the top of Casey's pier. And the youngsters were encouraged to take part in this display just to let them see heights that could be reached when manhood came their way. But of course, they couldn't hope to outdistance with their little limited machines the high volume artillery of boys in their early teens. But they got their compensation when a classmate tops at Irish maths and prose, like myself today, couldn't piddle far enough to keep the splatters off their toes. Now the venue for this tournament, untrod by man or beast, it was an old redundant haggard owned by Casey's, all deceased. And the winner, every evening, without fear of friend or foe, was a burly, well-fed gossoon called Tommy McEnroe. Now he never took the stand till last, and gathered in a hump. For sheer volume, power and distance, he'd put shame to Casey's pump, until one evening, a brazen 10-year-old called Mary Jo Maguire thought she'd view proceedings from inside of Casey's byre. Now she viewed the competition, contenders one and all, through a crack that time had burrowed in the ancient byre wall. And she never made a murmur through the whole of this display until McEnroe had put his powerful water gun away. Then she strutted out among us like a big-eyed cockatoo, and she shouted up at Tommy, "Hey Tommy, you think you're great, don't you?" Well, she clambered onto the rostrum like a little hippo in distress, uncaring of the way the wind had caught and lifted her little cotton dress. She planted both feet firmly on the edge of Casey's pier, and she started the proceedings with her rebel rouse and cheer. Woohoo! Now, her stance was most unorthodox. She was well buckled at the knees, and she adjusted her equipment by hand in order to catch the prevailing breeze. Well, her volume was colossal, beating Tommy by a quart and 6 or 7 paces with her introductory squirt. Then she done some fancy dribbles and some wicked turnabouts, and we all stood there like Egypts looking at her with our mouths. Then she turned the power hose on us, while we scattered far and wide, and there and then that very evening that ill-fated contest died. Now those classmates have scattered, and I've been married several years, and McEnroe is long since a priest away out in Algiers. He comes home now 1 year in every 3, and he spends his whole vacation talking over olden times with me. We talk about the school days, the football, the hurling and the crack, the schoolmaster Mr. Brady, and the poor old grocer Paddy Mac. We talk about the woodbines that we bought and smoked for pennies, 2 for 5, and the old monitor, Miss Daly, 98, and the old crater is still alive. We talk about the times we fought the travellers, Billy, Joe and Mickey Craig, but the sins of Casey's Haggard we avoided like the plague. But last year when Father Tom was home, my missus said she'd cook an evening meal for myself and Father Tom. So we both sat down at the table, and I turned on the TV, and it was poor old Charles Mitchell, you know, that man with the face especially designed for delivering sad news. But there was war and desolation, strikes and every kind of blues. And then some Mother Philomena, a heroic Irish nun, was honoured in the Vatican for some great deed she'd done. But we were chatting, and we weren't giving the detail any heed until he said, Castletown, Gagan, in the county of Westmeath. Well, my missus over sitting by the fire says, "Eh," she says, "you two should have known her. It says there she was Mary Jo Maguire." Well, I turned and looked at Father Tom. He was gathered in a hoop, and I pebble dashed the table with a mouthful of me soup. Now the laughter was contagious, like a tropical disease, and poor old Father Tom was down with his head between his knees. Well, my missus was disgusted. Now, She knew I was a beast, but she said surely she could expect a little better from a priest. Well, Father Tom gained his composure first, and he leant over and he whispered into my ear, "Hey," he says, "you know that's the one that beat my record all those years ago from the top of Casey's Pier." Now there's a moral to the story. Contradict it if you can. Competition brings out the very best in a woman or a man. Thank you.